program. So let's get back to the marketplace. Well, oil is one market, but let's get back to our debt capital market, where Sterling Bank is yesterday took the market streets by storm. Technically speaking, in terms of its 32 billion naira offering on the market that was listed, it was an SPV. The bank says it's all part of its grant program to beat the deadline, which is just ahead, for meeting higher regulatory capital. But what else does the bank want to do with not just the 32 billion naira, but the handshake of 65 million US dollars with the Arab bank, what's called the BADA? This was the exclusive Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent, got yesterday with Sterling Bank CEO Abubakar Sulaiman. Take a listen.
The decision by Sterling Bank to reposition itself is not just about branding. It's actually about responding to changes that are going on, specifically driven by technology and to be more precise, digitization. So the change is not just about the products that we're putting in the market. It's not just about the brand that we communicate. And it's not just about our people. It has to be holistic. So the rising sun is sort of the end game. Essentially, we need to rebuild an organization for the new generation. And that starts with being able to refresh the brand. The good news is that the bond is 99.99% subscribed to by the pension funds and other professional investors. So it is an asset for the well-informed investors. It is a 32.9 billion naira issue by the Sterling SPV. And the purpose of the bond is to raise about 20 billion for Tier 2 capital. That was successful. In fact, we wanted to raise 12 billion. It was highly oversubscribed, leading to us raising 20 billion in Tier 2 capital from the 32.9 billion issue. The objective of the issue is to drive our growth. First and foremost, obviously, to provide some buffer. With the country coming out of a recession, we anticipate that the growth is about to quicken. And when that happens, if you do not have sufficient capital, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that come up. We won't be positioned to take advantage of that opportunity.
So what would you be using the proceeds for these bonds for?
It's to drive growth in the 5 sectors that are primary to our strategy. And it is to drive growth in financing the health sector, education, agriculture, renewable energy, and transport. These are the heart of Sterling, the sectors that we are primarily committed to supporting. We feel that these are the sectors that needs to grow if the country is to achieve its key targets, especially regarding the quality of life and regarding employment.
You mentioned health and you mentioned education as part of what this process will be utilized for. I want to believe that won't be by way of CSR.
Absolutely. Everything we do is driven by sustainability, and it is not sustainable to use CSR for critical sectors like health and education. What we are trying to create is a business model that allows businesses to run schools and to run hospitals profitably and provide high-quality service. This already happens in other places, so it's not new. What we need to do is break down the barriers to success for these companies. Some of the barriers are financial. Others have to do with policy issues. And in some cases, it has to do with scale or the absence of certain technologies that could enable them. So we're willing to roll up our sleeves, work with the operators in the sector, sometimes work with government, create solutions that makes it possible for capital to flow into these sectors.
IFRS 9 is around the corner. Basel 4 is also here. How are you braced up for that?
Traditionally, Nigerian banks have actually comfortably met the capital requirement arising from Basel. I have been here a long time, and I've never seen a situation where we were not able to meet those capital requirements. And don't forget that we already have fairly high minimum capital requirements. There are countries today where the capital requirement in financial services are as low as 5%. The lowest here is 10%. We even have banks that have to meet 15% capital requirement. And so for us, I don't think that we have a problem being able to meet the capital required. We've also done very well regarding meeting the technical requirement of compliance, because a huge part of the job is how you are able to generate the data required to do your computation. And in many cases, some of the work we're doing now would even lead to lower capital for us when we can migrate or mature along the curve of Basel.
But I mean, the corporate bonds market is being crowded out by the FGN bonds. I mean, a lot of investors and analysts have said that there seems to be no room for corporate bonds. What do you make of this development?
The good news about Nigeria is that the private sector is a significant part of our economy. And even in the absence of government, the private sector can continue to move. We've seen that a lot. We've seen instances where budgets were not approved until May. It did not stop the private sector from functioning, and we have to count on that. But I'm also optimistic that after the election, a lot of things will move very quickly. That has also been our experience. Down to when you come down to the bonds market, companies like ourselves that have been around a long time owe it to the market to lead this process. Because if a company that has been around for over 60 years is not going to the market to issue bonds successfully, it's very difficult for companies that have been around for just 5 or 10 years to do so. So in this regard, we continue to trailblaze, and we hope that we're making it easier for those that will come after us. Our dream is to bring a lot of our own clients into the space, because for many of them, the needs that they have now is no longer for bank finance. A lot of them need to come into the capital market and raise long-term funding. Hopefully, we should be bringing some of them into the market in the coming months.
So the national elections were postponed by 1 week, and of course, that seems to be disturbing to a lot of foreign portfolio investors, and in fact, some of the domestic investors. But what's your advice for these folks?
A week in the life of a country is nothing. In another week, we would have moved on and forgotten about the postponement. It's understandable that people who are sitting outside the country might be a bit worried. But if you work in this country, if you've lived here, you notice that this is nothing. This is fairly common, and it's understandable. We do have it's a democracy for 200 million people, and it's a logistics nightmare. So it's not surprising that sometimes we're not able to deliver according to plan. So for us, it's not a material event. I think the country will do just fine.
Abubakar Sulaiman, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at Sterling Bank PLC, that exclusive interview with Temple Ashaju at the Stock Exchange on Tuesday. Of course, the market's moving on despite the rescheduled elections, but the concerns are still out there. Of course, all of that we expect to be laid to rest this weekend if all goes as planned. We'll come back after the break, and of course, we'll have to check in with the market. It's a very big week, and now we're getting to Wednesday, when the Debt Management Office is putting on the street 150 billion naira, just as the central bank will be paying back investors' matured treasuries worth about 576 billion naira tomorrow. So the liquidity on Market Street, what impact is that having on interbank market? We'll put all of that together in the box with the currencies market. All of that after this break. 2 minutes, we'll be right back.